Well, basically, as you are aware, the Mr. Musgrave is upset that he believes that there's some damage done, which is, I'm not here to agree or disagree with that, but the method he's going about in trying to get an agreement or settlement from it by, extortion and harassment is clearly a pattern that we need to stop. And even after he was served, he tried to contact us 2 other times. One time we had to call the police to remind him that we don't want contact from him. And so we are just asking the court to help us stop him from this continual harassment every day.
Mr. Rainey, and maybe you could point me in the right direction. Is one of your requests to have no communication from Mr. Musgrave?
Yeah, I don't know him. I'm not friends with him. I have no business with him, and I don't need any contact from him.
And for the court to issue some sort of order prohibiting communication from Mr. Musgrave to you, or I understand you've also included your minor children in the petition. Are there allegations in the petition that you can point me to, or your exhibits, indicating that verbal communication from Mr. Musgrave that you felt was harassment that persisted after him being told to stop? I've got the signs and the cameras and the letters and things of that nature. I'm specifically, and we can get to those. Specifically though, I'm wondering about, to the extent you're requesting no communication, if there are allegations in the petition that I missed as far as him communicating verbally with, you and your family that you wish to have stopped.
Well, and I've only spoken to him probably 4, maybe 5 times, and 4 of those, out of those have been him just coming over and yelling at us. I mean, there's no other communication that we've had with him.
All right, and then so that I'm again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to be I'm not testifying for you or anything. I just want to make sure I understand exactly what it is you're asking for. So you, to the extent there are allegations of the cameras pointed at your house, you want the cameras down, is that right?
Well, I mean, there's no need for them to be pointing, 5, 6, how many cameras he has at my house in my backyard. We've never once gone in his backyard over a fence or, I mean, as far as, walking on his lawn, it happened one time. My daughter went to get her Christmas presents. There's been no other trespassing from my family in the 7 years that we've lived here. And yeah, I mean, then, taking pictures of us in our backyard and then posting them in his window and on signs is just simply not normal behavior.
And then as far as the signs, is the request to have the signs removed?
Yes, I mean, he's posted signs on our side of the fence in our backyard. So yeah, we would request like all the signs be removed.
Which signs are you saying are on your property?
The photographs he took of me in my backyard, he printed and posted them in his window and in his front yard, and then hung them on the inside of our fence in our backyard.
It's in the response.
And then the letters, I understand there's been, I think, 3 letters regarding a potential lawsuit.
Correct.
Is the request to have no more written correspondence?
Correct.
Is there anything else that I'm missing?
I mean, it's just basically we want to stop the signs being put up. We need to stop him, trying to contact us. I mean, in fact, on Monday after the scheduling hearing, he stood at the end of his driveway, turned and looked at my window, smiled and waved. So he's not understanding what we're trying to do here. And then on Wednesday morning, he tried to talk with me. So we had the police come out and, remind him that, we're in the middle of this petition.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Rainey. All right, Mr. Musgrave, if you could please raise your right hand.
Yes.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to provide us the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay. All right, go ahead. And you heard there from Mr. Rainey. It sounds like you've got some responses. So go ahead, just to help frame frame your responses as far as what I'm looking at. I'm looking primarily at allegations of cameras on your property, either on the shared fence, looking into their backyard, or signs that are hung on the basically on their side of the fence, or things of that nature. And you're welcome to address other matters as well.
With the fence. The fence is built entirely on our property. I let them know that several times. Nobody, well, at the time, the property that they live on now was under foreclosure. The owner there didn't want to have anything to do with paying for a fence. So it's about an inch or two onto beyond our property line onto our fence. So it's not their fence.
And one thing you
if
may
it's on the
have
other
from,
side, if I put something on the other side of my fence, it's on the other side.
Right. So, okay. One thing that this court can't do is resolve property line disputes, as you may have heard from the previous case. So, so that's not something I can resolve.
Okay.
What I can look at though at this point is where there's a fence, and it's less in the vein of, who has property rights to what side of the fence, and more of a, where is there a reasonable expectation of privacy? Where is it understood at this point, given a location of a fence? Again, is there that understanding that this is, the neighbor's backyard? Okay. So that's kind of what I'm looking at.
And one of the things I had pointed out in my response is, and probably saw the clear pictures of that drawing or line drawing conversion from a actual photograph is a picture of Adam flipping me off from the other side of the fence. I showed, like, I walked out my backyard and he started yelling at me. I don't have voice recordings on my backyard fences, or I'd be able to give you that tirade. Anyway, so that if he had waved and smiled, been present neighbor, there'd be no issue with that photo at all. It'd be a pleasant photo. Nobody'd be complaining about it. It's only because of that response to me walking out the back door that I took a picture of while he was in the middle of the tirade that he has a problem with.
And where's that? Is that sign located on your property?
It's on my property. Yes. Yeah. Both. There's signs in my window inside my house. There were the two signs I had outside are gone. The one that was sitting right next to their health, mental health matters pointed at that sign, not at his house, that had that picture on it. When it got knocked over, it had two more of those pictures on it. Had long since been removed, and those pictures were repurposed for the backyard next to where he was flipping me off.
Which picture is on? I understand there might be some disputes on the location or ownership of the fence, but which picture is on the side? Is there a picture? I should say, is there a picture on the side of the fence
that he can see?
That he can see. That's sort of on. Okay. Yes. Which picture? Is
that same one. Okay. That's the picture of him flipping me off.
Okay.
It was, like I said, I think I put it in my response. It's a reflection of how I see him.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. If there's, thank you. That was my questions on the pictures. You're welcome to continue if there's other matters you wanted to respond to.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. You're kind of hard of hearing, is it right?
Sorry.
Okay. No, that's I remember that from last week. I was saying that was my question on the pictures. You're welcome to proceed on responding to the other allegations if you have anything further.
I'm welcome to what?
Proceed on addressing any of the other allegations.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure which ones you were concerned. Oh, and I know there was three things that I was, or at least two things that I was really concerned with. One of them was stating that I had a camera pointed at his daughter's bedroom. And if you looked at that, you've seen the actual view from that camera is watching the backside of my fence. You may have seen on that page too that there was junk piled up against my fence. That's why I have that camera back there. They destroyed property before and then claimed they didn't. I'm gonna track them now so that if they do that again, I have proof. I don't have video proof of them destroying my lawn. If they trespass again or damage my yard or damage that fence, I want to have video proof so I don't have to go through a year of trying to gather evidence to be able to prove it.
Is the reason that you have a camera facing the Rainey's backyard for things that are piled up against the fence? Is that because you're claiming that that area is your property line and so you want to see?
Because the entire fence is my property, yes.
Okay, so that's the reason.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I like to interject with questions.
Yeah,
so
no problem at all. I want to make sure you understand everything's going on. The other one is the allegation of filing a false police report regarding that trespassing. You've looked at the pictures. The pictures in the diagram, you can see what I'm talking about. I think I also, well, in fact, I know I posted a thing about how I feel about trespassing. And I realized after I wrote that statement at the very top of that page that that was something that Junior Achievement taught us before we went out to do door-to-door sales. You don't cut across people's lawns. You walk down the driveway, up the walk to the front door, and then you leave the same way and walk down the street to the next house. That's something I've been taught since I was in high school. There's also a couple of references in there. One is to a Supreme Court case where the officers were okay with having approached the house with no trespassing signs on it because they took the proper route. They walked up the driveway to the front walk and up to the door. That's always been my understanding of what trespassing is just if there's signs posted, you can only approach the proper way. And they snuck across the front yard to it didn't approach the front way, grabbed a couple of things and ran. And I still don't know what happened to that third package, by the way. I didn't have anything to do that day. And those packages, when they grabbed them, were not in the same places where the packages were when they were dropped off. I don't know what that third package was. But anyway, that was never the issue. If you look at the transcript of my discussion with the patrol officer, I never said anything about theft. In fact, I said if it was their packages, then it wasn't a theft. Because I told him they looked at the packages and then acted like they recognized the address on them. So it gave me the impression that they were grabbing something that was theirs, not just something random, but they were still trespassing across my yard to do it. Those two things like really concern me. And I don't know if those were part of the issues that concerned you as well. But those were a couple of things I wanted to address. The cameras, like I said, I have more than 30 cameras on my property. Most of those are aimed at where, okay, so there's 2 crows that visit me every day, a murder of crows every day this week, seagulls, blue jays or Stellar's jays, had half a dozen wood ducks in my backyard like yesterday. Dozen squirrels every day, stray cats, couple of raccoons wander through every night. I have hours of photos and videos of animals every day. Post some of those online, but it's a hobby. The cameras I do have in Adams area, I put the first one out there the day after that property damage was done to see if anybody walked back out there again. And that's when I saw Thania out there, when I talked to her about the damage to the property. I have added other cameras out there, the one with a spotlight, so I can, because people were out there at night doing stuff and I didn't know. So, because that first camera I put out there didn't have spotlight on it. And then the those two cameras weren't seeing the far end of that side of the house. So I have a couple cameras down there, but I'd rather replace them with a single outside camera. Those two are on the inside. Anyway, so the purpose of those cameras, those four, were to watch that side yard in case they came back to do more, and they did. And the only people I've ever yelled at is their contractors from my driveway saying, "Oh, no, you can't do that." And then I've gone over there and talked to them about why I'm not letting their contractors back on my side yard again because of the property damage. Some of their contractors have been really cool about, really nice about it. One guy offered to go grab the floor pad out of his pickup to put under his ladder so it wouldn't damage the lawn. Another guy ended up putting a metal strap around a pole that electrical pole that I couldn't get to the top of and come out. Anyway, so some of the guys have been really nice. Some of them haven't, but most of the time they've just been real understanding and gotten their stuff off of our lawn. But I have had to chase off several contractors from setting up their project on our lawn. Yeah, okay, so and I have gone through and addressed every camera that Adam brought up. There's a few that I can see the fence from the far side of the yard. There's the ones that he was concerned about that is in my pickup that has kept anybody from stealing from my mailbox lately. And the other one that just watches who's pulling into my driveway, so I get an alert notice before they show up at my front door. Those are pointed across my front yard, and Adam's house is on the far side of my property. So, I mean, they're parked on the far side from his property, where the pickup is, but that has a camera above it and camera in it. And I have reported the postal thefts to both the postmaster and the police department. So they're on record if that was ever in question. What's it? Signs are gone. They were responses to signs he put up. And I would appreciate him taking down those signs and the Ring doorbell that's pointed into our house. It looked like they moved some of the stuff that was leaned up against the fence yesterday. I appreciate that. And the Ring doorbell looked like it was in an initialized phase yesterday. That is the blue lights blinking, which means it either lost power or it was being reinitialized. But that would be okay with me if it wasn't used anymore. I don't like looking into our house.
Okay. And Mr. Musgrave, I know there's a lot of allegations to parse through.
I think I
if you have got
addressed
about-
all of them in
Yeah,
the response. If there's anything in particular you want me to cover more.
No, I think your
more than happy.
response and your testimony today thoroughly covers the allegations. What I'm going to do is turn it back to Mr. Rainey. It's his petition. He's got the burden of proof, so he's got the last word. Mr. Rainey, if you want to take a few moments to have some concluding remarks, and then I'll make a decision.
Yes, sir. So I have to take exception with the the claim that he came out and I yelled at him in his backyard. You know, I actually do have a witness to that. My wife was outside at the same time. I was out taking care of our pets, and I saw a flash out of the corner of my eye. I turned around, and he's standing there with a camera taking pictures. And I said, "Why are you taking pictures?" And that's where it started. And then he put those pictures in his windows. And as far as like, the trespassing, my daughter's 15 years old. She was excited. Her packages were misdelivered and she ran across the yard. I mean, there's no intent for anything other than get her packages. And as far as the sign on my door, my wife and I run a home daycare. Those signs that say kindness begins here are meant for a preschooler, not for Mr. Musgraves. So, I mean, the Ring doorbell is there because we have a business. We have to know who's coming to our door because we have children that we're taking care of. And that's the purpose. And the sign is not meant for him. And in fact, if he wants to go look at our front door, we have rainbows and bubbles on it. Those are not meant for him either. So, I mean, it sounds like all his testimony here is just justification for behavior that's not neighborly or normal. And we just want to take these pictures down and the signs to go away and for him to, stop his harassment of us.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rainey. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to enter an order, but it's going to be significantly reduced in scope from what's requested. And it's really just going to order Mr. Musgrave to remove any cameras facing the Rainey household backyard or direct pointed at windows. It's also going to and if there are cameras not pointed at the windows, that's fine.
Okay, I don't have any cameras pointed at the windows. The one camera that I have with the floodlight, I've got around the side of the house as much as I can and angled as far as I can that direction. It does have a wide angle and you can see sideways across those windows. You can't see directly and sideways across it. But that particular camera, I can mask. Again, I'm a camera professional.
Right.
I can mask out that part of the view, both from what causes the camera to turn on and any sound that comes from that.
Okay.
I'm at the end of it's a powered cable. I've got it plugged in and I'm at the end of where the cable can go, and it's up in an eave, right underneath to avoid rain on it. Okay. If I go buy a longer power cable and rewire it, I can probably move it further. I thought about trying to do that, but then I need to move it up and into the eave, keep it below the eave. I don't have a ladder that'll get that far. I'm looking at buying one at this point. So I'm trying to not have that at all pointing, not even have the windows at an angle in that shot. But it isn't there yet, but that camera doesn't have a clear view into any windows. The other one that you've seen that he was claiming is looking at his daughter's window, looks down.
Well, and to the extent that there were cameras, and Mr. Rainey, correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like some of the cameras that were of concern with the windows were the cameras also in the backyard. And to that extent, when it comes to cameras, on a private residence, you are able to record images of areas where there's not a reasonable expectation of privacy. So that's front yards, doorsteps, to some extent side yards, but where someone has expressed a reasonable expectation of privacy, and that includes a backyard, particularly if there's a fence. I understand there's disputes about the location of the fence. Those are areas where you can't film because there's an expectation of privacy. Now, it sounds like Mr. Musgrave, is claiming there's some sort of property line dispute. So I am ordering that, the cameras that are currently on the fence and on the Rainey side of the fence need to be taken down, as well as the pictures that are on the inside, on the Rainey household side of the fence. Now, if you litigate the property line dispute and it is determined where the property line is, and if that's somewhere different than where it is now, you can always revisit who can do what in what areas. But for right now, it sounds to me like there's a fence that divides the property on the Rainey household side. That's the Rainey household side until that property line issue is litigated and those lines are determined by a court. Again, that's nothing I can do. So for the time being, though, cameras on Mr. Rainey's side of the fence, pictures on Mr. Rainey's side of the fence, cameras pointed at the Rainey household backyard or on the back side of the house. Those will have to come down.
The one that's on my side, aiming at my side yard, that has
is that area fenced off? Is the side area fenced off?
Yes, it is.
On their side is fenced.
It's not on their side. It's on my side of my house. That camera's on the side of my house and aimed as much as I can turn it down the side of my house.
Oh, down the side of your, okay, so that's not going.
That's why it's there. It's not aimed at their house. It's aimed at the side of my house, but it has peripheral vision that can see the edge of the back of their house. I'm
going to read what I've written into the order. So hopefully that just clear. And I'm going to try to keep it simple because I don't want to micromanage too much.
Right.
But what it says is, and you'll get a copy of this, and so will you, Mr. Rainey. No cameras recording petitioner's backyard or pointed at petitioner's window. No camera on petitioner's side of the boundary line fence. No pictures placed by respondent on petitioner's side of the boundary line fence.
Okay, so the one camera that's watching their fence is in an area. There is a gap. There was a grudge fence built on the other side of my fence, and so there's a gap in that area. That's where that camera is.
Okay.
It's in a gap that's behind both of our yards.
Okay.
So it's
as long as
it's not on over his property. It's on a bit of a no man's land.
Okay.
And it's pointed back at my property.
Okay. Mr. Rainey, do you know what he's talking about? Do you kind of agree with that characterization? Do you know which camera he's talking about?
I do. Yeah. That camera was moved since we put in the petition. It still looks like it points. I can't tell you for sure, but it does appear to be still visible from our yard. So I don't know what it looks at, but it does appear to be still pointing and viewing our yard, our private area.
Have more than a dozen cameras visible from their yard.
Right. Well,
but pointed at their yard is a different story. And most of my cameras are low because I'm looking for wildlife.
Right. I understand.
So
I understand.
Well, I mean, I would say if you want to take pictures of squirrels on your fence, put the camera on the other side so it's pointing away from my house. That would be a solution.
Yeah, because what we're getting at, Mr. Musgrave, kind of what Mr. Rainey there was saying, is stepping back. The issue is from the Rainey household perspective, them feeling like there are cameras pointed at their backyard. And so to the extent what you're trying to do is capture wildlife, if you are able to point your cameras towards your house and towards your yard, that alleviates those kind of issues. Yeah.
Again, it is. Yeah. It's pointed. If you look at the picture from that camera, you can see. You barely see their house. You can, and that's like I moved it further back over, so it's looking more towards my house now. That's not the current picture that's in there, but it is so that it is aimed at my house, and the fence is in the foreground. My house is in the background. I don't know if their edge of their house is in that shot now.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm confident. It sounds like you kind of understand the parameters here.
And I do, yeah,
okay.
yes,
All
I'm
right.
real
So that's
familiar with the.
that is what the order is going to prohibit. Now, the signs, again, it sounds like there may be one of the signs that was placed on the side of the fence facing into the Rainey household backyard. So that sign will need to come down. But to the
Okay.
extent that you have signs on your property up in your windows, folks have a First Amendment right to display signs. And I understand Mr. Rainey takes exception to those. And
it's no problem.
Yeah.
I have a divider fence, which is right where that.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying those.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The signs
my
in
yard,
your
okay.
windows and on your property, they stay up. You can take them down
And I
if you wish.
consider that fence my property, but I will move it to my
Yeah.
side of the
Okay,
fence.
yeah, to the extent things are on that fence, you're gonna have to litigate the property line issue before putting anything on that fence. Because until that has been.
Now, why wouldn't
cleared-
he have to litigate the property line issue?
Well, because it sounds like at this point, I don't, there are causes of action in Superior Court where if it's unclear who owns the fence, it's called a declaratory judgment, and a judge can tell you who owns what.
Right.
So it may be worth going into that. If each of you keep operating under the assumption it's your fence, you might just wind back up in court a lot.
Right.
So it might be worth trying to either kind of mediate some kind of resolution between the two of you.
Why I'm asking, and a survey is like.
Right. So
outrageously expensive.
Okay, yeah. So
I can find the pin.
Right. So what I'm saying is, until that has been resolved, and this is not. I'm ordering what is up now facing the Rainey's property needs to come down. So on their side of the fence.
Okay.
To the extent that you're able to work out some sort of solution as to the boundary line, each going in half and half on a survey, or if you want to go to Superior Court and get some sort of declaration from a judge or something like that, I would suggest doing that. Otherwise, you both might find yourself back here in these harassment calendars more than you'd like.
Yeah.
So that's my suggestion. But all I'm doing is ordering pictures on the side of the fence that faces the Rainey household to come down. To the extent that pictures are clearly on your side of the property or in your windows, those can stay up. You have that First Amendment right. I'm not touching that.
Okay.
With respect to the correspondence, at this point, I'm not finding that rises to the level of unlawful harassment, primarily because it sounds like while the Rainey household doesn't like those letters coming in, I don't think there's been clear notice for that activity to stop. I think at this point, Mr. Rainey has made it clear that Mr. Rainey's household would like those letters to stop coming. So if you're going to file a lawsuit or small claims against them, I think it's probably time to
the next time will be
to
a
do
registered
it.
letter.
I'm not going to put an order on that or anything.
And registered letters are okay if I send them that.
I think at this point, Mr. Rainey has made it clear that correct me if I'm not wrong, Mr. Rainey, they don't want any more letters. So if you're gonna file a lawsuit against them, you should probably just file a lawsuit against them.
Okay. Don't I have to give them like notice?
So legal process is accepted from any, and again, I'm not entering an order or anything like that. But if you want, legal process is never part of.
Okay, so
process.
There's one step that you're supposed to notify them of a claim before you.
Yeah, so any sort of formal notice associated with a lawsuit, that's fine. I think again, Mr. Rainey, correct me if I'm wrong, what the Rainey household has made clear today is that they no longer want any correspondence from you talking about a potential lawsuit. And that, in the future, if that continues.
And those letters said I would terminate that on the 2nd of February.
It sounds like they just don't want any more letters.
Right.
So again, I'm not putting that in order, but.
No intention to send a,
Okay, so that addresses the letter issue. We've addressed the camera issue. We've addressed the signs issue. With respect to the allegations that Mr. Rainey's daughter, may have trespassed or anything of that, that's not really anything that's part of this hearing. And so I'm not going to make any findings one way or another. I think this all came to light, I think, as part of Mr. Rainey's general characterization of kind of harassing behavior, calling the police, when he felt it was inappropriate to call the police. We also try not to weigh in too much on restricting people's ability or Monday morning quarterbacking people's decision to call police. So I'm not really finding that interaction is relevant to this petition for unlawful harassment one way or another. So I don't find that needs any kind of court action here. And then similarly, I guess the last thing is I don't find that there's any basis at this point to order Mr. Musgrave to stop all communication with Mr. Rainey or his children. Again, there's nothing in the allegations here that rises to the level of unlawful harassment such that the court would need to get involved and start regulating that kind of behavior. So again, I am entering an order, but as I said earlier, the order really only touches cameras pointed to the petitioner's backyard, because I do find that they have a reasonable expectation to privacy in their backyard, or pointed at petitioner's windows. No cameras on the petitioner's side of the boundary line fence, and no pictures placed by respondent on the petitioner's side of the boundary line fence. At this point, again, issues on the location of the fence will need to be addressed either by the two of you privately, where you reach some sort of settlement, or by Superior Court. But at this point, given where the fence is, and that the area of the fence facing the Rainey household does in fact face the Rainey household, that's the basis of the order prohibiting, you putting anything on that side of the fence, essentially. Does that make any sense? Yeah.
I need to do maintenance on that fence as well. Can I access that side of the fence?
You're going to need to ask their permission, the Rainey's permission. I'm not getting into who, again, boundary line disputes need to be addressed somewhere else. If Mr. Rainey is saying that the fence is on his property,
fence maintenance has to be addressed somehow too.
And that's not for the unlawful harassment calendar.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think if you're wanting access to the fence and it's being denied by Mr. Rainey, and the two sides can't come to some sort of agreement on a boundary line or a fence, then that needs to be resolved either by both parties, on your own, either getting a survey or something like that, or going to court, over in Superior Court, to settle that dispute.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions, Mr. Rainey?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So like I said, I'm filling out the order now. We will, it's not going to be completed until later this morning. So we'll send out copies to everyone. Guys, we can just give it to him here. I'm almost done. All right. So I'm just about finished. So I'll complete it here so I can give a copy to Mr. Musgrave. Mr. Rainey will we send him a copy of it?
It's available.
It's available. Okay. All right. And then Mr. Rainey, it's available on the online case file where you filed all your exhibits. You can get a copy of the signed order there.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Musgrave, any questions?
Yeah. Part of his request was that I not be allowed within 1,000 feet of him.
Yeah, I'm not granting that.
Possible. Okay.
Yep.
And that the other thing was that any property issues are supposed to be resolved in Superior Court.
Yes.
Is that I was going to ask you if that's I noticed one thing it said that it would be transferred to Superior Court. I was wondering if I'm filing a harassment suit against the Raineys, do I file that in District or Superior Court?
I would suggest you file that in Superior Court.
So was this misfiled?
Well, no, to the extent it's just that we at District Court cannot resolve property line disputes. So when a claim of harassment is grounded fundamentally in an issue with a property line dispute,
Like trespassing.
Yeah, then that's something that we don't take up, and we don't. Sometimes we transfer it automatically. Sometimes we'll deny it and then just have someone file it in Superior Court.
Okay.
Mr. Rainey's allegations weren't necessarily grounded in a property dispute. It was more it sounds like that came about more in your response. And so.
And part of that, you've seen these things, right? Or have you seen that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, self-help.
Yeah.
And of course, like it says, you don't file against a neighbor. And In district court.
Right. One reason, because we can't, that often resolves, if that, it's not an exclusion, a categorical exclusion. It's just, that's more of a recognition that we in district court
Well, and
can't
that's
resolve
the reason
problems.
I hadn't previously filed the harassment.
Yeah, you're
suit, was
welcome to do
because it
that,
said
but
you don't do it against
Yeah,
the
it
neighbor.
would need to be in Superior Court.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
That's why I'm wondering why this wasn't filed in Superior. Or whether this should have been. Because I am a neighbor,
Right.
whether there was property or not, still a neighbor.
All right, Mr. Rainey, sir, you are free to go. I'm just going to sign the order here, and you can get a copy of it off the district court website, or I'm sorry, in the case file. And I'm just going to give a copy here to Mr. Musgrave in
And
person.
the ring doorbell that he has pointing into my house, is there any order for him to remove that, or do I have to file a separate?
No, you would have to file something separate. As this is just a request for him as a petitioner.
So if there's a camera on the neighbor behind me's property that points at the back side of my fence, is that allowable?
So I'm not going to get into a hypothetical. You're not the petitioner here. So if you'd like to file a petition against him.
Well, it's part of what your order was, that about not having a camera pointed at
Mhm.
that on his property. The camera I have over there is not on his property.
Right, but if there are cameras not on his property that pointed into his backyard, though, that's
So it's pointed into my backyard and catches the top of my, or part of my fence.
right. Then that should be fine. Again, the issue is filming his backyard.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
So if it's not aimed at his house, for example,
Mhm.
that's not an issue. I'm not gonna be
Right,
aimed at
except
anybody's
for
windows
cameras
or
that,
anything.
again, there's two things. It's cameras pointed into his backyard,
Right.
onto the backside of his house, or cameras that are located on the fence, on his side of the fence.
Right.
Yeah, those are the two prohibitions on the
Okay,
cameras.
yeah, and that one's not on his side of the fence, it's on the neighbor behind his
Yeah.
side of the fence.
And again, there's at this point, there's no communication prohibition, right? So if the two of you are able to talk out some of these issues.
Yeah, and I
you know,
tried to ask
you're
him
able to
about
do that.
moving that ring
Yeah.
camera, or
Right.
turning it off the other day. That's what I tried to
Okay.
ask him about.
So, all right.
That he wouldn't talk to me about it, so.
Here you go, Mr. Musgrave. Here's a copy of your order.
Okay.
Okay, there you are, sir.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much.
of course.
sir.
Yep. Have a good rest of your
Thank
day.
you.
You as well. All right, Mr. Rainey, any questions, sir?
By the way, did I do okay on my presentation?
You did just fine.
Thank you very much. My wife's an attorney, former JAG officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can tell you did just
She
fine.
thought I did good.
All right, good. Mr. Rainey, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. You're free to go. This is not necessarily about the prosecution of Michael Mansfield and what may have happened here. This is a request to prohibit communication by Ms. Mott to Ms. Maddox. I understand it's impossible to separate the issues with Mr. Mansfield with what's the petition here. So again, I'm gonna let some leeway there. But to the extent we start getting into some of the substance of the allegations against Mr. Mansfield and things of that nature, I'll try to keep us more on course here. Again, recognizing that these are all very related, but just try to keep that in mind as best you can, ma'am. All right, and so with that, I've sworn you in, and go ahead, Ms. Maddox, with your testimony.
I am writing this today to address Kriana Mott's response to my request for an anti-harassment order. I was unable to see that she responded until March 27, 2026, due to putting the wrong case number into the link that was sent by TCDC. The subject line had 26-00006 instead of 26-00066, which showed the filings. I was unaware that this was the issue until contacting TCDC. I was checking daily since Kriana was served, but it kept coming up as no results found. I am attaching a screenshot to hopefully show the court the misunderstanding on my part and confusion of case numbers. I will be ready to proceed March 30th at 9 a.m. if the court can take this response into consideration. If not, I request the court give a continuance so it can be considered. The statement is crucial to the case. Kriana and I did have a good relationship as long as I was attempting to get Michael out of trouble. I won't deny that. I also won't deny that I struggled with sobriety after Michael started abusing me again. I have remained sober since he was arrested the second time in January because I no longer have to live in fear. I had been sober for just over a year when I relapsed on July 11th, 2025. That night, Michael chokeslammed me into the ground out of frustration and the abuse cycle began again. Kriana witnessed him do this, and instead of standing up for what is right, she gave me one of her Valiums so I calmed down from the pain and sleep. Kriana mentions my drinking several times, but fails to mention her own dependence to benzodiazepines and marijuana. Michael's last use of methamphetamines was in October 2025, when he abandoned my son and I without any money or food in the home for 3 days. He did this again in January, which is why I was so upset in the messages to Kriana. Michael had been unfaithful for the entirety of our relationship, exposing me to STDs throughout my pregnancy in which I had to receive treatment. And the messages were in reference to him choosing women over us again. He had done this many times prior. I was very upset and heartbroken because I was attempting to get him out of trouble for strangling me, yet he continued to seek out other women. I was also free to express my anger in text messages because I couldn't do so in person without the threat of being hurt. I expressed anger and hurt with words after years of abuse and control. Both her and Michael both have extensive assault convictions, whereas I have none. She put a woman in the hospital for talking poorly about her daughter and served time. I was very aware of her past violence and could only express myself via text messages. It was a nightmare situation, and I am truly grateful to be free. I just finished an intensive outpatient program and am continuing on my own healing journey with multiple forms of therapy. Kriana states I stayed away for 4 days in July. In actuality, I was kicked out of the house and not allowed to return. I was arrested on July 14th for an unpaid bar tab. This case has been dismissed because it was linked to Michael's financial abuse. I had money in our account, but he had taken all of it, once again leaving me homeless and without anything. This had occurred multiple times within our relationship, including me sleeping in my vehicle while 7 months pregnant for 2 days. When we were living off of my salary and then maternity pay, it was our money, but when he had money, it was his, strictly his. Thankfully, the state was able to see I was being financially abused as well as emotionally, mentally, sexually, and physically. Kriana states that someone else is caring for my son. I am my son's primary caregiver, and this can be verified by the individuals who are in court with me today. They watch him if I have appointments or meetings, but I am his safe place and support. I know without a doubt that the individual who was attempting to serve Kriana was at the right house and was able to describe Kriana's vehicle precisely. We verified over the phone and through pictures. Casey's statement seems to be a lie to assist Kriana, or she needs to have her security cameras checked for inaccuracy. Kriana's statement of events that allegedly occurred on January 4th, 2026 is completely falsified. If any of those things are true, Kriana would be able to supply a police report number, picture evidence, and domestic violence is taken very seriously in this state. I would have been arrested. More importantly, Kriana did not come over on January 4th. I did drink again the night of January 3rd when they had taken my son after 3 months of sobriety, which I admitted to in the text Kriana submitted. Michael would take him as a means of control and to trigger a response out of me. The conditions I was living in after the strangulation up until I was finally free of him are some of the darkest, most confusing times of my life. I did want to help get Michael out of trouble because I still cared about him. And he told me that I had to get him out of trouble or he'd take my son from me forever. I am now in therapy to help overcome battered woman syndrome. I never yelled at my son about his father or threw anything at Kriana. This is a perfect example why I am seeking protection from Kriana. She will say and do anything to make me seem like the aggressor. Kriana states she wishes me no harm, yet lies and makes outrageous accusations to support her in Michael's case. She was not over on the 4th of January at all and cannot supply any evidence of this allegation. I hope the court sees what she is attempting to do. I knew there would be retaliation for me seeking this order, but had no idea the depth she would go to create more issues. Also, there was no welfare check on January 4th and no record of this. If I were drunk and throwing things, why would they have left Bodie with me? Also, if this were true, why was she back at the house on the 7th with me? Nothing from this allegation makes sense, and she has no evidence besides her statement. She sent welfare checks out of retaliation after he was arrested on January 10th, in which I have provided the court with the sequence number to confirm this in my previous filing. I would also guess that if she did file a police report, that it was done after he was arrested, again, out of retaliation. The text messages on January 5th, where I stated I was embarrassed of my behavior, is in reference to me posting about Michael's abuse on Facebook and speaking so poorly about Michael via text to Kriana, which you can see me talking about as the messages progress. My child had been taken from me, I had relapsed and was seeking help so I could reestablish myself, which is why I wrote a statement asking him to sign. You can see the desperation in my statement of him not having Bodhi around other women because that is what Michael was doing prior, taking him and exposing him to other women without my knowledge. I was also terrified he would remove him from Thurston County because his mother and him had made threats to hide him in Forks, Washington. The individual in court can also attest to these threats. I needed help and could not go get it due to their intentions and the fear of what would happen to my son. I initially sought this order to protect myself from harassment and pressure to not cooperate in the case against Michael. After seeing these allegations, I now feel it is more important than ever that this order be enforced. She is willing to use any form of abuse to save Michael's reputation and support his violence. The police reports demonstrate I was left with markings consistent with strangulation. There is CCTV evidence of him dragging me by my hair in the hallway and evidence of his severe alcohol use at Great Wolf Lodge the morning of the attack. I am fearful of what other allegations she will attempt as this case continues, and I do not believe she will be able to restrain herself. She supports and encourages Michael's violence. She told me many stories of the violence she endured by his father, and it is sad that she had to go through that, but that does not make it normal or acceptable. Kriana states she wants to restore peace, yet makes such extreme accusations and turns quickly if things are not being done the way she wants them. I would love for us to get to a place of peace eventually, but I do not believe that that can happen at this time. She wants to justify Michael's abuse, and the only way to do that is to make me look unstable and incapable of caring for my son. She also states she just wanted to see if Bodhi needed anything, yet neither she nor Michael have provided any financial or essential needs for Bodhi. I know for myself the hurt and pain caused by Michael is far too fresh and will take me years of therapy to undo the abuse I endured for so long. If she could refrain from trying to justify his actions, we could have a relationship, but her messages from February demonstrate that we are not there yet. And there was 2 or 3 other quick things I wanted to point out, if that was okay.
Sure.
In the text with the Amber individual, when she was addressing something about the CPS situation or possibly calling CPS, that was not what was relayed to me, and those individuals are in court with me today. But you can see where she's talking about I'm going to get picked up that day. After Michael was arrested the first time, she was doing everything to get me arrested, anything and everything. She also conveniently cut out me talking about the fear that I was in the October text. That conversation wasn't finished, but I wasn't able to supply those. And when she would come over to the house, the day that I mentioned in my initial filing about where she was being particularly nasty to me, I wondered why she was. And when I looked down, she had her phone positioned in her pocket in a suspicious way as if I were being recorded. And I sensed that she was trying to get a reaction out of me. And lastly, I want to say this situation is chaotic and messy and heartbreaking, but I did not seek protection against my son, against Kriana, or his father. I have graciously and actively tried to have him see him against all odds, because I don't want to do that to my boy or to him or to her. We have court-appointed mediators that Kriana was going through, but on February 20th, she didn't like the stipulations that her son was under. So that's why she went around and found contact with me. And this was after I had changed my number, where I live, what I drove. I mean, I changed everything about my life because after years of leaving and going back and leaving and going back, I was finally free of this.
Is Ms. Mott a party to any of those other orders involving Bodhi and all of that? Or is that just between you and Mike?
No, she's not a party.
She's not a party.
No,
Okay. All right.
no, and she was not present at Great Wolf Lodge when the strangulation occurred.
Thank you.
Yes. I think that's it.
All right. All right. Ms. Mott?
Yes.
If you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm not a part of Mike and hers fight. I wasn't there at Great Wolf Lodge. Sorry, I can't say that correctly. I've never condoned what has happened. I wasn't there. I don't know. They both have different stories. I've always been there to help with, just to help with Bodie. I think they're both irresponsible. Amanda's not telling the truth. I've never threatened her. I've asked to see Bodie numerous times since January and have been told no. I have offered to buy diapers through Jan and Mike Davenport, and they said no. When my Amanda was struggling to stay sober, and we had Bodie, I took him over there to see her twice. We never tried to keep him from her. I even had the Davenports take him there, but they called and immediately had me come back and pick him up because Amanda was not in a good frame of mind. In the texts that I provided, I could have provided you a booklet. I have kept everything since she was 3 months pregnant because of her inconsistency and not being able to stay sober. I have never wished her ill will. I've always forgiven her for sending not nice messages or horrible texts. She sends them to, when she gets drunk, she sends them to my mom, my other siblings, or my other children. And all of that will come out when they go to court, because I'm going to have to be one of Mike's witnesses. But their fight is between them, I'm not in it. I'm only there to help with Bodie. I've never reached out and harassed her. She did get a new rig, I heard, but hers was not running. It's not like she's trying to change her whole identity, so nobody, like, we're chasing her down or I'm chasing her down. I did stay, when I come there, I've stayed twice with Tacey, her name is, and she did go through her whole surveillance camera. Not one person has been there to try to serve me. I was only there for 4 days, the beginning of March, and I have a silver Charger and she has a silver Honda that sits in her driveway 24/7. She drives a truck to work, so I don't know if they thought that was my car, but I just don't feel like I need a harassment order placed against me. I don't reach out to her, and when I did, it was to see if her and Bodie needed anything. I've always tried to be there for her as much as I have been with Mike. I've even went to family court with her for her trying to see her other 2 children. I just don't wish her any ill will. My main concern is about Bodie. And I miss him terribly. She doesn't let me, I mean, I went from watching him and having him all the time to not being allowed to see him, or I'm not allowed to have pictures of him anymore. And I do miss the little guy. He's an amazing little boy. And I hope that one day that this will pass and that peace can be restored. But she has nothing to worry about me trying to harass her or track her down. I don't know where she lives. I mean, I know she lives with Debbie, and I like that because Debbie takes good care of Bodie. And when Amanda's drinking, I just feel like she gets wrapped up in her sadness and things that have happened to her in the past, and maybe she doesn't prioritize him when she's hurting. I don't
Thank you.
know
Ms.
what to say.
All right, Ms. Maddox, back to you. You mentioned in your petition, as well as your testimony, that you are not trying to have Bodie be a part of the protection order between you and Ms. Mott. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you would envision that? Like, let's say the court were to enter an order. Would you, how do you envision that going forward? If Ms. Mott's unable to speak with you, are you still comfortable with that happening as far as her seeing Bodie? Or, and I ask because it seems like you've been explicit about wanting to not have Bodie involved in any kind of protection orders. And from a lot of the text messages that both parties have filed, it seems like a lot of the communication does revolve around Bodie. And obviously a lot of emotion around him as well. So how do you envision that working were the court to impose an order?
We would use the court-approved mediators,
Okay.
which is who we've been in communication with. And I did tell them that his size of diapers and everything. So I need help financially until I find work and resourcefully. So I'm not sure where the miscommunication on that part is, but I also told them that I needed a car seat for him, that I needed new shoes for him, that he's outgrowing things. And so I'm not sure where that miscommunication has happened.
All right. And
And
so the
nobody
mediator
knows
is that,
that.
what, all right. In one moment, Ms. Mott. So can you talk to me a little bit more about the mediator and what that situation is?
Yeah, so we wanted to keep this out of family court.
When you say this, is it a separation or divorce proceeding between you and Michael?
We're
or
unmarried.
Okay.
So we're unmarried, and I have been through family court. I think it's a beast,
Mhm.
and I didn't want to have to do that again for myself or with Michael. I have struggled with sobriety. Being in an abusive relationship made it extremely difficult. Again, seeking therapy and all my healing on these parts. But with his upcoming trial and with the history of them taking, and I do have to say them because she was a part of this, them taking Bodie, whether I was drinking or not drinking, it was a punishment to me. And when all of this happened on January 3rd, I had just done an interview recanting. So it felt like I was doing all of these things to save him, and I was still being punished, and my child was being taken from me. And it's my responsibility that my reaction is to drink. But again, I'm not living in that anymore. That's not my life anymore.
So is it a mediator? Is it a
Oh, I'm
mediator
sorry.
for? No, it's
I
okay.
deviated.
That's part of my job.
Yes.
So is it a mediator for a parenting plan then?
Essentially, we weren't doing anything through court.
Oh, I see.
I spoke with the prosecutor, and he asked me, he was like, is it okay if these individuals are allowed to talk to you about the child so that information could be conveyed to him, and also then his mother through Michael. And I send pictures. There hasn't been any updates. He does have a doctor's appointment this week. I would have sent an update then. So we got it. I had it cleared with the prosecutor and with Michael's attorney that these were safe people to go through, and Kriana had been using them prior to the 20th of February.
Okay. All right. So through Michael's prosecution,
Yes.
there are some third parties who've been identified that allow some communication.
Yes, and so that he
regarding
wouldn't get in
Bodie.
trouble.
I see. Okay. Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. All right.
Sorry for
And are we
being-
talking about the Davenports?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the ones that when we did have Bodie, when you were drinking that, I gave Bodie
So
to
Ms.
them
Mott-
to bring
Ms.
to
Mott,
you.
So that's an example of, you address the court. All right. So if you want to respond to something, don't say you when you're talking to the other party, talk to me.
Well, and
Right.
that was the Davenports are the ones that I have asked if he needs anything, and Jan didn't respond back to me. And then it was like a week later, I got served those papers, and I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm sorry for asking if Bodie needed anything. I didn't know that I had a harassment order trying to be served on me. And she just, texted me back that the whole situation was just heartbreaking.
And I did inform the Davenports after the filing because I did not want Kriana to unintentionally break it. And so we could also arrange for her to talk to the Davenports about Bodhi. But one of the bigger, broader issues here is Kriana constantly inserting herself into this situation where she could easily go through her son, who is allowed to go through the Davenports.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. I know, Ms. Maddox, you've been providing some follow-up testimony. It's your petition. It's your burden. So if there's some concluding remarks you'd like to make, now's your time.
Are you speaking to me?
No, I'm sorry. I'll try to speak up. I'm talking to Ms. Maddox.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Spot.
I believe that eventually we can get to a place where there will be peace and reconciliation. For me, it is extremely distressing to hear from Kriana because her history is now backed with her trying to interfere with the justice system. And I'm learning a lot about how abused women behave. And she was just a part of that. She was a part of me lying to get him out of trouble. And the focus is going to all be put on my drinking and not on the violence that I was enduring. It's not appropriate for me to be in communication with her. And the larger threat now that I have is these accusations that are coming out. I'm growing and living my life and trying to heal. And I've now had welfare checks. I've had CPS, I guess it ended up not being, but there's been threats overall. And it affects my well-being, which affects my entire life, my ability to parent. And I thought, well, I actually had reached out to the prosecutor that it was kind of just like putting the situation on ice. That way there could be no contact from her, pressuring me to cooperate, or because in her earlier messages, so she said he's doing so well and he's wonderful. And it's very raw for me. I'm still trying to move on past this relationship and all the damage. And I understand she's trying to save her son. I sympathize. It's just not appropriate. It's not safe. I am on my own journey now. I think that's it. I know that she cares about her grandson. I do. And I hope we can find a safe way to make that happen. But for me, as the party that was isolated, living with those two and trying to get him out of trouble, it's not safe for me mentally, emotionally. I can't do it.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. All right. Well, before I make my ruling, I want to thank you both for being here and addressing what is clearly a very difficult situation. Apart from there's this prosecution happening with Michael, and this is just another court proceeding, and so I realize this is difficult for everybody. I am going to grant the order as requested by Ms. Maddox. The reason being is Ms. Mott, I understand what you've been saying about the reasons for interacting with Ms. Maddox, and wanting to focus on Bodhi and all of these other things. What I'm looking at in the anti-harassment statute, and I said this earlier this morning too, is when the court is looking at whether certain types of communication meets the definition of unlawful harassment. One of the things that we look at, and this is really what I'm basing my decision on, is whether the respondent's course of conduct has the effect of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive living environment for the petitioner. And so, in this case, I think that Ms. Maddox has met her burden in showing that, for whatever reason underlying the communication from you, I feel that it is having that effect on her. And so for that reason, I am entering an order. It is just, again, between the two of you. It is not involving Bodhi. And what I'm also going to do to just make sure that there's no miscommunication and sort of accidental, unintentional violations, I'm gonna put in the order that there's, I'm going to call it an exception, but hopefully it's just more of a clarification that third-party communications related to, and I'm going to put the cause numbers for the Superior Court cases involving Mike, that's okay. Is that?
Yes. That's
So that if the mediators in the prosecution case, I mean, there may be a situation where, Mike wants to talk about Bodie and Miss Mott, and that involves some communication from her getting to you through a mediator. It sounds like that's not what you're asking to be prohibited, so long as it goes through those mediators. So I'm going to carve that out as well. But other than that, the order will prohibit contact between Miss Mott. Well, it will restrain Miss Mott from contacting Miss Maddox in any other way. It's going to be in place for a year. I understand it is at this point longer than the trials that are scheduled in Mr. Manfield's case. So just be aware that if Mr. Manfield's, if his case resolves in any pretrial mediators or anything to that extent, that kind of goes away with the case. That will have the effect of then taking out that exception, if that makes sense. So right now there's that third-party communication exception related to a prosecution that at this point, if my notes are correct, is scheduled for trial in late May and early June. So whenever that prosecution resolves for those two cases, if it resolves before this order resolves, that exception will go away. Does that make sense, Ms. Mott?
Oh, I have a question. I mean, I want to know, like, how was that going through? I mean, how did I harass her? I don't understand that. I was never a witness to them fighting. I mean, I really don't understand how this is being approved. I've never harassed her. I never witnessed them being violent.
Ms. Mott, I'll answer your question. I want to make sure I'm clear in how I got to my decision. All right. So the basis of the order is are the text messages between the two of you, the two of you being the petitioner, Ms. Maddox, and yourself, and some testimony today on talking about the case. I'm really not talking about communication between, or I'm not looking at communication between the two of you, talking about Bodie and updates on Bodie and things like that. There are some text messages that have been uploaded that indicate some discussion about Miss Maddox's relationship with Mr. Mansfield and talking about the outcome of the case. And again, I'm not, this isn't to say that you are having it is the purpose of your communication to, intimidate or do anything of that nature. It is having the effect on Miss Maddox of feeling intimidated with respect to how this case against Mr. Mansfield is going forward. That does meet the definition of unlawful harassment.
But I only got involved when she asked for my help. I mean, that's the only reason, and that's one of the texts is she asked for my help. Right,
and it sounds like this has been a very right. Understood. And communication can change, right? There's a lot of dynamic back and forth that has happened here. And again, as I talked about earlier, one of the ways that we usually look at these things is there persistent communication after being told to stop. That's one way we look at this. Another way we look at this, though, is what is the effect of that communication having on the petitioner? And if it meets that level of creating an intimidating or hostile or effect on the petitioner that's causing substantial emotional distress, then that does meet the definition of unlawful harassment. And based on the text I've seen about the case itself, I understand there's also conversations about help with Bodie. We're not talking about those. We're talking about the conversations with respect to the case against Michael. And based on those and Ms. Maddox's testimony on how that is having an effect on her, I am finding that that meets the definition of unlawful harassment.
Well, not to be disrespectful, but I think that's wrong. I just totally think that's wrong. She has asked for my help to try to fix what is going on between them, even though I was not there. She asked me to go to court to help get a judge to sign off on the harassment or protection when it first started. I mean, I will totally abide by whatever you say and, or, you know, that you've granted, but that's not true. And that's not how it happened. I only was there to help. And it was because she's the one who reached out for me to help.
I understand, Ms. Mott, and I understand that you're, you disagree with this. I understand that. The order is going into effect. Again, it will be in effect for a year. Reconciliation happens in the future. You know, we'll see what happens in a year with this order, but for now, again, communication through the mediators, so long as they're in place, is allowable. I am putting that exception in here, but as far as communication directly between, or any communication between Ms. Maddox, I'm sorry, from Ms. Mott to Ms. Maddox, outside of that context is prohibited for the next year.
And there hasn't been any, so that's fine.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Ms. Mott. You're free to go, ma'am. And Ms. Maddox, what I'm going to do here is sign the order, make a copy here, then give you a copy.
Thank you.